Donald Trump's wars continue. Welcome to Law and Society. Please subscribe. By Donald Trump's wars, I mean Donald Trump's attacks on American society, Donald Trump's attacks on the rule of law, Donald Trump's war against American society, where he is weaponizing the military, weaponizing the National Guard, filling the ranks of the DHS and ICE with agents who will flow onto the streets in major American cities and hold people, detain people, harass people without due process, without warrants, on the basis of Donald Trump's executive orders, many of them that are now wrangled up in the courts, especially the ones in California. But it is not stopping Donald Trump and his regime from continuing their attacks on everything. So today I will talk briefly about a few things, starting out with the suspension of FEMA. So a whole big group of FEMA officials sent an open letter to Congress saying that Donald Trump had gutted emergency response. And what was the administration slash regime? Administration is habit. Regime is where we're at. And the response was that they put about 30 of the people who were signatories on that letter on leave. That was the response of somebody, of a whole bunch of people from FEMA saying that America's Federal Emergency Management Agency has been gutted and we cannot respond to emergencies properly. Whether that be emergencies that have to do with immigration, whether that has to be emergencies that have to do with terrorism, whether that has to do with emergencies that have to do with natural disasters. It includes all of those. The preparedness of our government is sabotaged by gutting of FEMA. And we are seeing that happen in the open. Then there was a whistleblower complaint by the chief data officer of Social Security, Charles Borges. And in that, he says that there has been a Social Security Administration breach by DOGE, where millions and millions of personal data was moved from was moved from the government's database to DOGE's external data cloud. And it is something that is sort of like baffling. So Borges says that career cybersecurity officials within the SSA describe a decision to copy the data as very high risk, and even discuss the possibility of having to reissue Social Security numbers to millions of Americans in the event the cloud server was breached. The copy of the data appears to have been set up inside SSA's existing cloud infrastructure, which operates on Amazon Web Services. However, according to the complaint, the copied data had far fewer security measures in place to protect it than SSA's standard protocols typically require. According to Andrea Meza, an attorney with the Government Accountability Project who represents Borges, the cloud environment appeared to be set up for DOGE-affiliated Social Security staffers, but it lacks independent security, monitoring, and oversight. She said Borges has serious concerns about the vulnerability it causes for nearly every American's data. This is happening at the same time as the Social Security Administration is being gutted of employees so as to make it difficult for people to even access the system to get their paperwork going to get Social Security. And now you have this data breach by Doji, which is not really a government institution even now. I don't know if it was made into one. I don't think it was, unless it was part of the big beautiful bill, in which case it's unfortunate. But the point is, Doji is accessing our private data without our consent. It's a huge privacy concern. It's a huge security concern for individuals. And that is, if that is not a threat to the American public, it's difficult to see what is. And unless you look at Donald Trump as the adversary, as the enemy within, it doesn't make sense. But when you look at it from that vantage point, it makes complete sense. Donald Trump is directing the National Guard, the military, to create special unit reaction forces to quell civil unrest. Why, Donald? You expect civil unrest for some reason? This sounds like it's a build-up to going into cities with specialized National Guard units to perform functions that possibly evade the Posse Comitatus Act. But I don't see how National Guard quelling civil unrest, which is primarily the duty of the local police departments and the state police officers, is not a violation of the Posse Comitatus Act. We're going to have to see what his executive order is going to be and what aloof law he finds that authority from. But he's not really going to need the guard very long. So this may be just, for the time being to, create this alarm while he is recruiting his DHS army. And we know that has been fully funded by the MAGA Congress. And what we have now is sort of a makeshift federal personal army. But as soon as DHS is fully staffed, I don't think we're going to see much of the Guard or other military unless he calls out like tanks and such, that we're going to see much more of DHS. And you know what National Guard people in DC are doing right now? They are picking up trash. That is what Donald Trump wants the National Guard to be mobilized for in the city of Washington, D.C. Because you know what? Crime is not the point. The overtness, the iron-fistedness, the intimidation, the scared tactics, the visual of what Pam Bondi and Donald Trump have been able to do in Washington, D.C. is a sort of a warning to all cities. And not all cities have protections like blue cities in blue states do. Blue cities in red states don't have that in many instances. Like Atlanta is not a sanctuary city because Georgia has an anti-sanctuary law. But quickly about this point about that it is not about crime, it is about creating fear and this police state that is going to, this is a shock and awe campaign that will then be followed by an sort of an inundated, not inundated, I guess the right word would be endemic to our society, where we're going to see DHS agents everywhere. But if you're looking for crime, for violent crimes, Memphis, Tennessee is number 1. DC falls on that chart on number 29. Chicago is number 92. LA is number 56. In terms of murder, Birmingham, Alabama is number 1. Memphis is number 2. Memphis, Tennessee is number 2. St. Louis is number 2. And Memphis, Tennessee is number 3. DC is number 10. Chicago is 22. And Los Angeles is 88. Memphis is number 1 in total crime. Chicago is 48 and LA is 137. So it's not about the crime, especially not when you have National Guard troops who have left their communities, left their jobs to come to Washington, D.C. to pick up trash. That is an insult to the Guard. It is a waste of taxpayer money. It is a disruption to these people who have invested a portion of their lives to public service. And it is obscene in many ways that the Guard is being abused in this way, and that red state governors are falling in line and, championing Donald Trump's approach to creating a police state by having the Guard police our national capital. Then another story came out that really kind of grounds us a lot. MAGA, there was a backlash from MAGA against Donald Trump when he said he was letting in about 600,000 Chinese students. It is a reminder that it isn't just Stephen Miller who's depraved. There's a segment of Donald Trump's base, many of whom are very loud about it, who are really rotten at the core, who are racist, who are nationalist, who are stupid and mediocre, who are spiteful and stubborn and fearful and envious and jealous and bigoted and xenophobic. And that demography is never going to leave MAGA, and they are a vocal part of MAGA. We have to keep that in mind. And it is not our job to change their minds, because nothing will change their minds, especially not Donald Trump in the White House, because they know they have a friend in the White House. And Donald Trump has made many instances known where he has shown over his long life that he is a racist. And I've talked about it many times, not going to talk about it again. It is now sort of res ipsa loquitur. It is as it is. It's right there in front of you. He opens his mouth for longer than 2 minutes, something racist comes out. Now, next, I want to talk briefly about the 50% tariffs that were imposed on India that went into effect today. It's going to have a detrimental impact on textile, on jewelry, leather goods, food, and automobile because of base parts, because of parts being made in India and being sent to the United States. That's going to raise the cost of clothing, accessories, food materials like rice, leather goods, cars, because car parts will become more expensive. For now, there is an exemption for electronics and for electronics and pharmaceuticals, because India is one of the largest producers of and exporters of generic pharmaceutical drugs. And those two are still exempt. But if Donald Trump imposes tariffs on those two, and there's no telling if they will, electronic parts will go up, meaning the price of electronic goods will go up. I don't know how the Apple thing will happen, or whether, I think there is already an Apple factory in India, and whether Apple products being produced in India will be subjected to tariff in United States because it is an American company, or whether if it is done through subsidiary and therefore it will be subject to tariffs. I don't know the specifics of that. But the point is, if it gets to electronics and pharmaceuticals, it's going to be a disaster, because on America's side, generic drugs prices will go up. So pharmaceutical prices will go up, or they'll become completely unavailable because tariffs will be so high that India is not going to want to export to the United States, because nobody in the United States is going to want to buy from India generic if they can get the the name brand one for just a couple of dollars more. But that's still, and then you have the American pharmaceutical industry, which will increase the price on their products. The likelihood of that in a market economy and in a capitalist environment where greed is good is foreseeable. So, and I'm just talking about these issues. Then there's the topic of Ukraine, and Donald Trump has not been able to do anything about that. Donald Trump has not been able to do anything to feed the starving children of Gaza and Sudan and from the other, and provide aid, whether it be health aid or food aid that was provided by U.S. aid. Only about 13% of the money that was allotted to U.S. aid is now going out, which means there's a lot of pain, but we don't know, and we're not hearing about it because it has gone into the phantom zone. I mean, the monumental loss of soft power and American influence around the world that we lost with the U.S. aid program being defunded has been monumental, but we are not hearing anything about it because the zone is already flooded with so much. And we have, I said, the topic of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Judge Sinis has put a block on Kilmar's removal, and the government has been notified. Judge Sinis has said very clearly, quote, "Your clients are absolutely forbidden at this juncture to remove Mr. Abrego Garcia from the continental United States." So right now, Abrego Garcia is in detention and not to be removed until there is a show cause hearing, until there's the habeas corpus case that goes through, and then we see what the disposition is and what his immigration issue is and where he stands with the Tennessee charges. Where, I mean, it's, the government is just really, I mean, it's capricious, and it's almost like it's attacking Kilmar Abrego Garcia in saying that if you plead guilty to the Tennessee charges, we will send you to Costa Rica. But if you don't plead guilty to it, then we're going to send you to Uganda. When he is legally under the immigration court order before he was illegally removed, was legally in the United States. And his family are all U.S. citizens. His immediate family, wife, children, are U.S. citizens. So, in order to not allow this sort of stay to take place, so the Maryland bench, federal bench in the District of Maryland, has this standing order that you will not deport, or you will not remove people from the United States for 2 days, 2 business days, in cases of immigration. So, what Donald Trump's administration did, that the fact that they had this gall to do it, is sue the entire Maryland federal bench, saying that policy of pausing deportations, federal courts don't have the power to do. And it was summarily dismissed by Judge Thomas Cullen, who is a Donald Trump appointee. The policy that is in question here, known as a standing order, requires court clerks in Maryland to automatically enter administrative pauses that last 2 business days in cases brought by alleged illegal immigrants who are challenging their detentions or removals. The injunctions have the effect of temporarily barring the Department of Homeland Security from deporting or changing the legal status of an immigrant until a judge has a time to review the case. And Judge Cullen says, although some tension between the coordinated branches of government is a hallmark of our constitutional system, this concerted effort by the executive to smear and impugn individual judges who rule against it is both unprecedented and unfortunate. And Donald Trump's administration has already appealed the ruling to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, this ruling by Judge Cullen that has summarily dismissed the standing order of the Maryland courts to put a stay on deportations involving immigration. So you see, the executive power is at war with the federal bench. And it is at war with somebody like Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who can tell what happened to him, whose story is a telltale for hundreds of others experiencing this, who is not getting the attention that they so very much need. And Donald Trump's regime would rather send him to Uganda than admit that they are wrong. And I hope that Abrego Garcia's attorneys are going strong with their civil lawsuit against the government. And I hope that the universe favors Mr. Garcia as we move forward, as there is the habeas corpus hearing, and we're going to see how that ends. And you know, I will end with these few things: that don't forget about the scandal about the survivors and victims of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Don't forget, yes, I know I said pronounce that name that way. Don't forget about the cuts that are coming to rural and inner cities in education and in medicine. Keep an eye on grocery prices. Let me know in the comment box if you see a jump in grocery prices. Electricity prices are going up. And, Donald Trump has taxed the renewable energy sector instead of subsidizing them. And that's going to cause electricity costs to go up even more. Then there's, what's happening with the immigration thing continues to happen, by the way. People are still being detained. People are still are still in those detention camps. People are still not being processed through immigration. People are still being picked up outside immigration courts when they have their immigration hearings. Then there is the attack on the free market, where U.S. government has taken control of 10% of Intel, thinking about doing that with defense contractors like Lockheed Martin. I mean, this is sort of this hodgepodge jambalaya of a fascist / communist, God only knows whatist. We're going to find out, we call it Trumpist madness, that we're right now living through. I want to acknowledge all of it. And I want to acknowledge the suffering of the people who are going through these times. And I want to record it for history. And to tell you that that is not how me as an American sees America. I am American. And I am American because America gave me opportunity, and I was lucky enough to be able to get citizenship. And I hope that America is a place of hope and opportunity for everybody. Where I got my education, where I got my first home, where I started my tribute projects, where I learned what I know, the basic foundation of my knowledge. And I believe that America has that to offer: knowledge, innovation, moving forward, being champions of the best, who are meritoriously the best, who are the smartest, sharpest, who come up with the most ingenious ideas to solve the problems of today's world, as well as propel us into the future. America is that place, and it needs to be that place. With that said, thank you so much for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe. I know these talks have gotten long, but there's a lot of ground to cover, and I thank you for listening. Take care.